Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is great to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
We've got a stack of research on the desk that is, frankly, it's going to mess with your head a little bit.
Just a little.
Usually, we're looking outward. We're talking about the economy or history or some new tech breakthrough. But today, we are turning the lens inward, way inward. We're looking at the architecture of your own autobiography.
And we don't mean the autobiography you might, write down in a book someday when you retire.
Right.
We're talking about the one your brain is writing constantly, in real time, and often without you even realizing it's happening.
Exactly. We're digging into this fascinating collection of sources that revolve around a central and, I've got to say, a somewhat unsettling question. Who are you? I mean, are you the person living your life right now, moment by moment, feeling the chair, drinking the coffee? Or are you the story that you tell yourself about those moments 3 days or, 3 years from now?
It sounds like a philosophical riddle, doesn't it? But the research we have today suggests it's actually a biological and psychological conflict.
A conflict.
We effectively have two selves living inside our heads, and the spoiler alert is they do not get along.
They really don't.
Yeah.
And to understand that conflict and to really get the mission of this deep dive, we have to start somewhere that seems totally unrelated to psychological research or neuroscience.
Right.
We have to go to the opera.
The opera. Okay.
Specifically, Giuseppe Verdi's La Traviata.
A total classic.
It's ultimate classic. Now, I'll admit I'm not a huge opera buff myself.
Me either, but this story.
But the source material opens with this vivid retelling of the story that just grips you. So let's set the scene for you. We're in 19th century Paris. You have a young aristocrat, Alfredo. He's young, he's intense, and he falls madly, passionately in love with Violetta.
And Violetta is a woman of the demi-monde. She's a courtesan. So right off the bat, you know this is a forbidden love.
The cards are stacked against them. But they're in love, and it's passionate. They run away together to the country. It's bliss.
Yeah.
But then
The hammer drops.
the hammer drops. Reality crashes in. Alfredo's father shows up. He corners Violetta and essentially says, "Look, you are ruining my son's reputation. You are ruining his sister's chance at a good marriage. You have to leave him."
And in the grand tradition of tragic romance, she makes the ultimate sacrifice. She doesn't tell Alfredo the truth. She pretends to reject him to save his family's honor. She breaks his heart and her own on purpose.
It's gut-wrenching. And then, because this is a 19th century opera, tragedy strikes twice.
Of course.
She falls ill.
Yeah.
It's consumption. Tuberculosis.
The go-to disease for operatic tragedy. It allows for a lot of, pale, beautiful suffering.
Exactly. So now we're in the final act. This is the climax.
Yeah.
Violetta is lying on her deathbed in Paris. She's weak. She's financially ruined. She's alone. She's dying. But then she gets word. Alfredo knows the truth. His father confessed. Alfredo knows she sacrificed everything for him, and he is rushing back to Paris to be with her before the end.
And this is the moment where the audience is absolutely on the edge of their seats.
That's the key tension. The source points out that no matter how many times you have seen La Traviata, even if you know exactly how it ends, you are gripped by this specific, gnawing anxiety. Will he get there? Is he going to make it in time?
The music is swelling, the clock is ticking.
And then the door bursts open.
And the relief in the theater is palpable.
He's there. They have this incredible, tearful reunion. They sing these marvelous 10-minute love duets. It's glorious. They dream of leaving Paris, of being happy. And then, after about 10 minutes of this beautiful music,
Violetta dies.
curtain falls.
Thunderous applause. Everyone goes home crying, but strangely satisfied.
But here is the observation from the source that kicks off our entire deep dive today. The author mentions walking home from the opera and realizing something bizarre. The entire emotional weight of that story, the tragedy, the beauty, the satisfaction, it all hinged on those last 10 minutes.
It is the 10-minute rule.
Think about it. If Alfredo had arrived 10 minutes later, if the carriage broke down or the train was late and Violetta had died alone.
Oh, the audience would have been devastated.
Devastated. It would have been a completely different story.
Completely
It
different.
would have gone from a tragedy of reunion to a tragedy of isolation. It would feel broken, wrong. The audience would leave feeling cheated.
Which feels intuitively correct to us, right?
Right.
We want the reunion. We crave that closure.
But hold on. Let's look at this through the lens of the source material. The author asks a very specific question. Why do we care so much about those 10 minutes? The author realized that as an audience member, they didn't care at all about the length of Violetta's life. If the libretto said she was 27 when she died, or 28, or 30, Nobody cares.
That missing year of life, 365 days of potential living, means zero to the audience.
Zero. But missing the last 10 minutes.
That destroys everything.
So we have this weird equation where 10 minutes of story resolution is worth more than years of actual life.
And it's not just about the reunion happening. The source notes that even if they had a week together or a month, the emotional impact wouldn't have changed much.
Right.
It was the fact that the reunion happened at the end.
This leads to the core quote from our source. A story is about significant events and memorable moments, not about time passing.
That is the friction point right there.
Yeah.
Life is time passing. That is the physics of it.
Right.
But our memory of life, that's a story. And stories operate by different rules than physics.
And that is our mission today. We're going to unpack this gap between life is time and life is story.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to explore the two characters living inside your head right now, the remembering self and the experiencing self.
This distinction is the foundation of everything we're discussing. Most of us walk around thinking, I am me, one person, I experience things and I remember them. But the psychological research suggests that's an illusion.
An illusion.
You are actually two entities with two different agendas.
So let's introduce them properly. Who is the experiencing self?
The experiencing self is the one living through this exact second. It's the version of you that feels the temperature of the room, hears the cadence of my voice, notices that your lower back hurts a little or that you're thirsty. It lives exclusively in the now.
Okay, so it's the sensor, is the raw feed.
Right. And then you have the remembering self. The remembering self is the storyteller.
The editor.
The editor. It looks back at the past hour or the past year and constructs a narrative. And crucially, it decides how you feel about your life.
And as we saw the Traviata, these two selves have wildly different priorities.
Wildly.
The experiencing self just wants the moment to be good. The remembering self is obsessed with a dramatic arc.
It is. And to create that arc, the remembering self uses a very specific mechanism. The source calls it duration neglect.
Duration neglect. It sounds like something you get fired for, but it's actually a cognitive glitch. Let's unpack that.
Duration neglect is the tendency to completely ignore the length of an experience when we evaluate it.
Completely ignore it.
Stories are defined by changes, by significant moments, and by endings. The sheer amount of time that passes, the duration, is invisible to the storyteller.
So going back to the opera, the 10 minutes of reunion is weighted heavily because it's a significant moment and it's the ending.
Right.
The 27 years of Violetta's life before that, that's just background noise.
Precisely. This leads to what psychologists call the peak end rule. This is a huge concept in this field. The remembering self evaluates an entire experience based essentially on two data points. The peak, which is the most intense moment, whether it was good or bad, and the end, how it finished.
And everything else is just filler.
Pretty much. If the peak was high and the end was good, the memory is good. The duration doesn't matter.
The source mentions this applies to everything. It's not just opera. It applies to medical procedures, vacations, even films.
The colonoscopy example is the famous one in the research.
Let's talk about that because it seems so counterintuitive.
So there were studies where patients underwent painful procedures. This was back before better sedation, so it was genuinely uncomfortable.
Okay.
They had two groups. Group A had a standard procedure, painful, then it ended. Group B had the same procedure, but at the end, the doctor left the scope in for a few extra minutes.
Ouch. Why would they do that?
Well, during those extra minutes, the doctor didn't move the scope. So it was uncomfortable, but less painful than the main part of the procedure.
So Group B had more total pain. They had the bad part, plus extra uncomfortable minutes.
Mathematically, yes, more suffering.
Right.
But because the end of the experience was less painful than the peak, Group B rated the entire experience as much less painful than Group A.
That is insane. You add more pain, but because the end was better tapering off rather than abrupt, the story becomes, it wasn't that bad.
Because the remembering self doesn't sum up the pain. It averages the peak and the end. The duration of the suffering is neglected.
It makes sense with movies, too. You can watch a film that is brilliant for 2 hours. Great acting, great script. You are totally engrossed. But if the last 5 minutes are a plot hole or a cliche twist that makes no sense.
You walk out of the theater saying, that was a terrible movie.
Even though you were entertained for 120 minutes, the experiencing self had a great time for 95% of it. But the remembering self says the ending sucked, so the whole thing is trash.
The ending defines the character of the experience. The remembering self is a harsh critic, and it doesn't care about runtime. It cares about the script.
Now, what really grabbed me in the research is how we apply this to other people.
Mm.
We aren't just harsh critics of our own lives. We judge everyone else's life through this narrative lens. We act like everyone around us is a character in a movie we're watching.
We do. We crave narrative coherence. We need lives to make sense as stories.
There is this example of the estranged daughter in the source that really illustrates this.
Right. So imagine a scenario where an old woman dies. She hasn't spoken to her daughter in 20 years. It's a bitter, long-standing estrangement.
Okay.
When you hear about her death, what is the very first thing you ask?
Did they make up?
Every single time. Did they reconcile before the end?
Now, why do we ask that? I mean, obviously we have empathy. We hope the daughter isn't sad. We hope the mother found peace.
Yeah.
But the source argues it's deeper than just empathy.
It is. We're trying to fix the narrative of the mother's life.
Fix the narrative.
Think about it. If they reconciled in the final hour, just 1 hour out of 20 years, the story of her life becomes a redemption arc.
Right.
It's a tragedy with a silver lining.
But if they didn't?
Then it's a tragedy of stubbornness. It's a broken story.
And here is the thing that really twists my brain.
Mm-hmm.
The reconciliation lasts maybe an hour.
Mm-hmm.
The estrangement lasted 20 years.
Exactly.
Mathematically, the reconciliation is a blip. It's a rounding error in the duration of her life. But narratively,
It saves the whole book. We care less about the mother's moment-to-moment feelings during those 20 years of loneliness than we do about the final chapter. We want the biography to read well.
speaking of biographies, there's this concept of postmortem narrative change. The idea that things happening after you die can change the value of your life. This one seems incredibly unfair to the person who lived it.
It feels very unfair. Take the betrayed husband scenario mentioned in the source.
Okay, so imagine a man. He's married. He adores his wife. He thinks she adores him. He lives a long, happy life. He dies with a smile on his face, holding her hand, thinking, I am the luckiest man in the world.
So his experiencing self had a 10-10 life. Pure bliss. He never felt a moment of doubt.
But then, 5 years after he's buried, we find a diary or some letters.
Oh, no.
Turns out, the wife had a lover the whole time. She actually despised the husband. She only stayed for his money.
And the moment we learn that, what do we feel for him?
Pity. Massive pity.
We say, oh, that poor man. What a fool.
But why? He's dead. He never knew. He lived a happy life. Why are we pitying a man who experienced nothing but joy?
Because we don't define his life by his feelings. We define it by the truth of his story.
Yeah.
And suddenly the story changed from happy marriage to duped fool.
It implies that we value truth higher than happiness.
Or rather, the remembering self values truth. The experiencing self just wants to feel good. But when we judge a life ours or someone else's, we are strictly in the domain of the remembering self. We want the hero to be real.
Right.
We want the victory to be authentic. If the victory was fake, the feelings don't count.
There was another example, the discredited scientist.
Same mechanism. She makes a huge discovery. She wins prizes. She dies celebrated. Years later, it's proven the data was wrong, or she made a mistake. She was incorrect.
And what do we feel?
We feel humiliation on her behalf, even though she died proud.
It's almost like we view life as a performance, and the reviews can come out after the actor has left the building.
That's a great way to put it. We want the reviews to be good forever. We want to be a decent hero in the narrative.
Okay, so we've established that we are obsessed with the story, sometimes at the expense of reality. But how bad is this math error? This brings us to the Jen experiment.
Oh, yeah.
And frankly, this is where the logic of the human brain just falls off a cliff.
This is the work of psychologist Ed Diener. He wanted to see if this duration neglect we see in movies and colonoscopies applies to a whole human lifetime.
Wow.
So they created a fictional profile to test people's intuitions. They created Jen.
Tell us about Jen.
Jen is a fictional character. The profile is very specific. She never married, had no children, and she died instantly and painlessly in a car accident.
Why that specific setup?
They had to remove the tragedy variable. No La Traviata lingering death. No grieving husband or kids left behind.
Got it.
Just a clean life and a clean break. They wanted to isolate the variables of happiness and duration.
Makes sense. So participants are shown Jen's life. What are the options?
In scenario A, Jen lives 30 years, and they are described as extremely happy years. She loves her job, she travels, she has great friends, a short but spectacular life.
Okay. Scenario B.
Scenario B is exactly the same, but she lives 60 years. 60 years of extreme happiness.
Okay. Basic math time.
Right.
60 years of joy is double the amount of 30 years of joy. It is literally twice as much good stuff.
Yeah.
So scenario B is twice as good.
You would think. They asked participants 2 questions. How desirable was Jen's life, and how much total happiness did she have?
And the results.
Complete duration neglect.
Now,
When different groups saw these scenarios, doubling the life from 30 to 60 years had 0 effect on the desirability rating.
0. So 30 extra years of bliss is just pre-packing peanuts. It doesn't count.
It doesn't count because the brain looks at Jen and sees a type. She is the happy person. That is her character.
Yeah.
Whether the movie of her life is 90 minutes or 3 hours, the character is the same. The total happiness isn't the sum, it's an impression.
So we don't integrate happiness over time. We just take a sample and say, yeah, looks good.
Exactly. We substitute an average for a sum, but it gets worse. This leads to the less is more effect. This is where your brain really betrays you.
Oh, great. This is scenario C.
Right. Imagine Jen lives a very happy life, let's say 60 years. But then she lives 5 bonus years.
I like bonus years.
Well, wait. These 5 years are described as pleasant, but less so than before.
Okay.
She isn't miserable. She's just slowed down. Maybe she's content, but not ecstatic. It's slightly happy.
So 60 years of great plus 5 years of... Okay,
When participants rated this life, the desirability score dropped like a stone.
you're kidding. They thought her life was worse because she lived longer.
Yes. Significantly worse, because you added mediocre years to great years, so the average quality of the narrative went down.
That is mathematically absurd. If I give you $60 and then I give you $5 more, you have $65. You don't say, oh, this $5 bill is crumpled, so now I only have $40.
But stories aren't money. Stories are arcs. The narrative of scenario C is, she had a fantastic life, but then she kind of faded out at the end.
Right.
That fade out ruins the story. It is a less compelling narrative than she died at her peak.
So the remembering self would literally rather die sooner than have a few okay years at the end.
The remembering self would. The experiencing self, no way. The experiencing self wants those 5 years. That's 5 years of sunsets and tea and conversations with friends.
Of course.
But the remembering self, the critic, says, cut it. It ruins the pacing. Get off the stage while they're still clapping.
The source mentions that the researchers were baffled by this. They thought, surely if we show people these options side by side, they will see the logic.
Right, the within subject test. They thought, if I put Gen A, short happy, next to Gen C, long happy plus okay, people will realize, oh, C has everything A has plus more.
Did logic prevail?
Not at all. The intuition is overwhelming. Even when you stare at the math, your gut says the shorter, sharper life is better.
Wow.
And it wasn't just college students. They tested this on parents, older folks. Everyone makes the same mistake. We are wired to judge the prototype of the life, not the sum of the moments.
This is the better to burn out than fade away philosophy, but proven in a lab.
It is. We are terrified of the fade out because it dilutes the brand of our life story.
Now, I play the role of the skeptic here. I can hear you yelling at your speakers right now. Wait a minute. Of course duration matters. I'm not crazy. The source calls these the labor and vacation objections.
Yes, these are the standard pushbacks whenever this theory is presented.
If I tell you you have to go into labor or you have to get a root canal, do you want it to last 6 hours or 24 hours?
You pick 6 every time.
Or if I send you to a luxury resort in Bali, do you want 3 days or 6 days?
I want 6.
So doesn't that prove we care about duration? We want less pain, more pleasure?
It looks that way. But the expert rebuttal in the source is fascinating. They argue that we still aren't counting the minutes. We are looking at the end state.
Unpack that for me.
Take the labor. Why is 24 hours worse than 6? Is it because you are mentally adding up 1,440 minutes of pain? No.
Okay.
It's because after 24 hours of labor, the mother is physically exhausted, she is depleted, she is potentially traumatized. Her end state is physically and emotionally worse than the mother who labored for 6 hours.
So the peak end rule is still driving the bus. The end is worse, so the memory is worse.
Exactly. Same with the vacation. After 6 days in Bali, you are more tanned, more relaxed, you've forgotten your email password.
Right.
You are in a better end state than the person who only stayed 3 days.
So we aren't judging the time, we are judging the transformation. How did I look when I walked out the door?
Precisely. If the 6th day of the vacation made you bored and sunburned, making your end state worse, you might actually prefer the 3-day trip. We are always looking at the exit interview.
This idea of the exit interview perfectly transitions us to how we travel. Because if we are living for the story, it completely changes what we do on vacation.
Oh, absolutely. This brings us to a really interesting distinction in the source material between two types of travel industries: resorts and tourism.
I like this distinction. Resorts are for the experiencing self.
Right. Think about a resort. You go there to do nothing, you lay on a beach, you get a massage, the food is brought to you. The goal is to maximize the sensory pleasure of the now. It is restorative.
But tourism. Tourism is hard work.
Tourism is a job. You are walking 10 miles a day. You are waiting in lines to see the Mona Lisa. You are sweating. You are dealing with pickpockets. You are rushing to catch trains.
Why do we do it? It sounds miserable for the experiencing self.
We do it for the remembering self. We are building a resume. We are collecting stories. I saw the pyramids. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I stood in the Sistine Chapel.
And the tool of this trade is the camera. The source talks about frenetic picture taking. And I have to admit, I'm guilty of this. I see a sunset, and my first instinct is to grab my phone.
You and everyone else. But think about what that action represents. The source says, the photographer does not view the scene as a moment to be savored, but as a future memory to be designed.
Ouch. A future memory to be designed? That is bleak.
It is. You are checking out of the present moment, sacrificing the actual experience so that you can secure proof of it for later. You aren't seeing the sunset. You are seeing the photo of the sunset.
It's like we don't trust the experience to be real unless we freeze dry it.
And the tragic part is, we often never look at the photos. But the act of taking them reassures the remembering self. Okay, we banked that. It's safe. Next.
It changes our language, too. We say, that was a memorable trip, as if memorable is the highest compliment you can pay an experience.
We treat memorable as a synonym for good, but they aren't the same. By deciding a moment needs to be unforgettable, we put pressure on it. We start narrating it in real time. This is the part where we fall in love. This is the part where I reach the summit.
You stop living and start directing.
Exactly. There is a study on spring break students that illustrates this disconnect perfectly.
Right, Ed Diener again. He really loves studying how bad we are at judging our own fun.
So they tracked students during spring break. They asked them to keep daily diaries. At random intervals, they'd get pinged. How are you feeling right now?
That's the experiencing self data, the raw feed.
Then at the end of the week, they asked for a global rating. How was spring break? That's the remembering self. And finally, and this is the key, they asked, would you do this vacation again?
I'm guessing the daily diaries weren't all sunshine and rainbows.
No. Spring break is gritty. You're hungover, it's loud, maybe you're sleeping on a floor, maybe it rains, maybe you had a fight with your friend. The experiencing self had a lot of complaints.
But the memory.
The memory was, it was awesome, best week ever.
Wow.
And the decision to repeat the vacation was driven 100% by the memory. The daily reality didn't matter.
So we are doomed to repeat mistakes because our editor cuts out the hangover scenes.
We date the wrong people, we go back to stressful jobs, we take exhausting vacations, all because the story we tell ourselves about them is good, even if the reality was a grind.
This brings us to the most provocative part of the source material. These are the thought experiments. And I want you, the listener, to really engage with this. Don't just listen. Actually try to answer this question in your head.
These questions are designed to force a divorce between your two selves. You have to choose one.
Okay, here is the scenario. You are planning your absolute dream vacation, whatever that is for you. Hiking the Alps, a villa in Tuscany, deep-sea diving in Fiji. Cost is no object.
But there is a catch. Two catches, actually.
First, at the end of the trip, all your photos and videos will be destroyed. No Instagram, no albums, no proof.
And second, you have to drink a potion at the airport that wipes your memory of the trip. You will arrive home knowing you went, but with zero recollection of what happened.
The question is, how much would you pay for this vacation? And would you even go?
When I first heard this, my immediate reaction was, what's the point?
Me too. I thought, if I can't remember it, why bother?
Which is fascinating, isn't it? Because you would still have the pleasure. You would still feel the Tuscan sun, taste the wine, see the art.
Right.
Your experiencing self would have the best 2 weeks of its life.
But because the remembering self gets nothing, no souvenir, no story, we think the value is zero.
It implies that we view our experiencing self as a stranger. We don't care about giving him a good time. We only care about what we, the storyteller, get to keep.
The source uses that exact phrase. Odd as it may seem, I am my remembering self, and the experiencing self who does my living is like a stranger to me.
It's a profound alienation. We treat our bodies and our senses as just a collection mechanism for our memories.
This is clearest in the mountaineering example. I have friends who climb big peaks, and when they tell me about it, it sounds awful.
Oh, yeah.
Freezing cold, oxygen deprivation, sleeping in tents that smell like feet, sheer exhaustion.
In real time, it is suffering. It is type 2 fun at best.
If you told a climber, you can climb Everest, but you won't remember reaching the top, would they go?
Absolutely not. The only reason they endure the suffering of the experiencing self is to get the merit badge for the remembering self. I climbed Everest.
Right.
Without the story, the pain is just pain.
Okay, second thought experiment. This one is darker. The painful operation.
This one separates the selves even more violently.
Yeah.
Imagine you need a surgery. You will be conscious. It will be agonizing. You will be screaming, begging the surgeon to stop.
Nightmare fuels.
But you are promised a drug immediately afterwards that wipes the memory. You will wake up smiling, with no trauma, no recollection of the pain.
How do you feel about that?
When people are asked this, they are surprisingly indifferent. They say things like, well, if I don't remember it, it's like it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
It,
But it did happen. You were screaming.
but you, the person talking to me now, the remembering self, won't carry the burden? So you are willing to throw your experiencing self under the bus? The source quotes the author saying, I feel pity for my suffering self, but not more than I would feel for a stranger in pain.
That is chilling. We are willing to let this stranger inside us be tortured, as long as the storyteller doesn't have to read the chapter.
It creates a real identity crisis. If we identify fully with the remembering self, then the experiencing self is just a vessel, and we are not very kind to that vessel.
We drag it through jungles, we make it pose for photos. Instead of letting it enjoy the view, we ignore its pain if the ending is good. We are kind of in an abusive relationship with ourselves.
We sacrifice the moment for the memory, constantly.
So let's bring this home. We are living in a society that is hyper-obsessed with the narrative. Social media has essentially weaponized the remembering self. We curate our lives for the feed, not for the feeling.
We are all Gen now. We want the prototype life. We want the vacation to look perfect on the grid. We want the bio to read successful, happy, adventurous. And we will ignore a lot of moment-to-moment misery to get that caption.
The source has some beautiful quotes under the heading, Speaking of Life as a Story. I want to highlight a couple of them because they really ground this in human behavior.
Go for it.
Here's one. He is desperately trying to protect the narrative of a life of integrity, which is endangered by the latest episode.
We see this with public figures all the time. They fight scandal not just to avoid jail, but to save the story.
The story.
One bad chapter at the end ruins the whole book. That's the peak end fear.
Another one. The length to which he was willing to go for a one-night encounter is a sign of total duration neglect.
A classic. We chase the peak, that intense high of romance or passion, completely ignoring the cost, the blowout, or how short it actually is. We want the highlight reel moment.
And this one, which I think is the advice we all need to tape to our bathroom mirrors.
Oh.
You seem to be devoting your entire vacation to the construction of memories. Perhaps you should put away the camera and enjoy the moment, even if it is not very memorable.
That is the challenge. Can you let a moment just be nice, not epic, not unforgettable, just nice, and then let it vanish?
It's hard. It feels like losing something.
It does. But the alternative is never really being there at all.
The final quote from the source is the one that really stayed with me. It's about Alzheimer's. She is an Alzheimer's patient. She no longer maintains a narrative of her life, but her experiencing self is still sensitive to beauty and gentleness.
That is heartbreaking, but also beautiful. It reminds us that even when the storyteller goes silent, when the memory fades, the experiencing self is still there. The feelings are still real.
It brings us back to that question of the stranger. If you are your remembering self and your experiencing self is a stranger, maybe it's time to start being a better friend to that stranger.
That is the question to leave on. Are you dragging that stranger through a miserable week just to get a good photo? Are you ignoring their boredom or pain because you want the achievement?
Or are you letting them sit in the sun, close their eyes, and just feel good, even if you won't remember it in 10 years?
Maybe we should treat our experiencing selves with a little more kindness, even if it doesn't make for a blockbuster biography.
A provocative thought to end on. Next time you reach for your camera, ask yourself, who is this for? The me right now, or the me of tomorrow?
And maybe, just once, leave the camera in your pocket.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, take care of your strangers, and we'll see you in the next one.